give it to the world, and at least when the critics say it's a bunch of rubbish, say, well, I like it. And as long as you're convinced you do like it, that's the main thing.
After more than 6 decades at the center of glory, controversy, and endless rumors, Paul still maintains his place as an irreplaceable icon. Now, at the age of 82, when the biggest secrets and even the most haunting rumors seem to have faded into the past, Paul McCartney unexpectedly speaks out to clarify everything. What has never been revealed will now be confirmed by him. Paul McCartney was born in Liverpool on June 18, 1942, into a family with a long musical tradition. Paul's father, James Jim McCartney, was a jazz musician who played the trumpet and piano and also led the Jim Max Jazz Band. The small concerts at home remain vivid memories that nourished Paul's earliest artistic emotions. His mother, Mary Patricia, was a nurse and midwife who always taught her children to be strong, compassionate, and to care for the community. When Mary died of breast cancer while Paul was just 14, the shock became the first milestone that forced him to grow up sooner than his peers. A fateful encounter came in the summer of 1957 when Paul was just 15 at a church picnic where the teenager with his guitar met John Lennon, leader of the Quarrymen. Paul made a strong impression with his skilled guitar playing and excellent memory, knowing by heart the lyrics to the most popular songs of the time. Immediately after the meeting, John invited Paul to join the group as lead guitarist and lead singer, opening up a songwriting partnership that would last more than a decade and completely change the face of pop music worldwide. Oh, baby, I should never walk down my street anymore. Music. In the early years, Paul and the Quarrymen performed at small parties and clubs in Liverpool, gradually building a reputation with their youthful rock and roll style. Paul then switched to playing bass, a decision made out of necessity when the group lacked a bass player. But this very change helped Paul become one of the most creative bassists in pop music history. Alongside music, Paul attended the Liverpool Institute High School for Boys. There he met music George Harrison, who would later become his close friend and indispensable collaborator in the Beatles. The connection between Paul and George went beyond musical passion. It was also a complement of technique, emotion, and personality, contributing to a strong foundation for their later famous compositions. Although he came from an industrial city still facing many hardships, Paul has always emphasized in interviews that self-reliance, optimism, and friendship helped him overcome every obstacle. He once recalled, "My father always played jazz at home, which made me think that music was an essential part of life." By the late 1950s, Paul began experimenting with songwriting, recording his first songs and arranging music for his band. Together with John Lennon, he laid the first stones for what would become the most famous songwriting duo of all time. They complemented each other not only musically but also created an intriguing contrast. If John was the symbol of rebellion and edge, Paul brought sweetness, harmony, and a modern sense of structure. This combination quickly made the Quarrymen the most noticed name in Liverpool and gradually paved the way for the emergence of the Beatles. Glory accompanied by conflicts. When the Quarrymen evolved into the Beatles with the addition of George Harrison and Ringo Starr in 1962, a completely new chapter of modern music began. Paul McCartney took on the roles of bassist, lead vocalist, and co-songwriter alongside John Lennon. The Lennon-McCartney duo quickly became associated with more than 180 songs, many of which are pillars of global pop music history. Yesterday, written in 1965, not only became the most covered song in history, but also achieved over 6 million radio plays in the United States, according to Kennedy Center statistics. Songs such as Hey Jude, Let It Be and Penny Lane continued to expand the list of classics bearing Paul's imprint. The Beatles became a global phenomenon from 1964, sparking Beatlemania and changing the music listening habits of an entire generation. With the album Rubber Soul 1965, the band entered a period of maturity, pioneering new directions in harmony and production thinking. The peak was established with Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band 1967, which Rolling Stone ranked as one of the greatest albums of all time. In 1969, Abbey Road closed the group's tireless creative streak with a series of interconnected songs, confirming their unrivaled position on the world music map. In each release, Paul's creative role became increasingly prominent. His bass technique, especially in tracks growing apart like She's a Woman, 1964 and Rain 1966, has been recognized by pop music critics as having redefined the standards for the modern band bassist AllMusic. Paul was not only a principal songwriter, but also the person who developed elaborate arrangements, contributing to the unique character of every stage in the Beatles' evolution. Behind the spotlight, however, tensions between the members grew. Beginning in 1968, the frequent presence of Yoko Ono alongside John Lennon in the studio added pressure to the group's internal relationships. The death of manager Brian Epstein took away the figure who had balanced both financial and psychological matters. Disagreements over creative direction, business interests, and increasing differences in personality between Paul and John became more evident. In interviews with Rolling Stone 2018, Paul McCartney candidly admitted, "It was a slow process, but it was inevitable. We were all growing apart, and it was time for us to move on." While John Lennon was viewed as the force of rebellion, Paul became the steady anchor, striving to keep the group together, but often misunderstood as being too controlling. Their relationship was both a creative partnership and a silent rivalry. This tension was not only a source of strain, but also the energy behind their timeless music. The breakup of the Beatles in 1970 was a major shock to the music world. Many attributed the responsibility to Paul, calling him the one who broke up the band. At this time, Paul faced not only media pressure and public doubt, but also the challenge of reinventing himself outside the shadow of the legendary band. After those difficult fractures, Paul's journey was about to move into a new phase where he had to rediscover his own voice and personal strength on the challenging solo path. A race with his own self. After the Beatles officially disbanded, Paul McCartney became the focus of international media and the subject of skepticism about whether he could stand on his own outside the immense shadow of the legendary band. In 1970, Paul released his first solo album simply titled McCartney. He wrote, recorded, and arranged the entire album himself, demonstrating independence and a creative spirit unbound by expectations. While the album received mixed reviews and even derision from the press at the time, it marked Paul's first step in asserting his artistic freedom after the Beatles era. In 1971, Paul formed the band Wings with his wife Linda McCartney and Denny Laine. This was a risky decision as all eyes were watching to see whether Paul could write new chapters of success or would forever remain in the old spotlight. Wings started off with struggles, facing harsh comparisons with the Beatles, but persevered with songwriting and performances. In 1973, the album Band on the Run was released, immediately reaching number 1 in both the UK and the US, and was ranked by AllMusic among the greatest rock albums of all time. Hits like Jet, My Love, and Silly Love Songs returned Paul to the top, proving his resolve to overcome prejudice and the weight of the past. Wings' success extended beyond the charts. Hall, Linda, and the band expanded their global influence through major tours, creating a fresh atmosphere and a special bond with fans. Paul always considered Linda his greatest encouragement, helping him stay confident through the doubts and challenges of a solo career. He once shared, "Music is how I survived every upheaval, and Linda is the one who kept my inspiration alive." During the Wings years, Hall constantly refreshed his style from rock to ballads, from pop to electronic experiments, and even classical projects later such as Liverpool Oratorio. After Wings disbanded in the early 1980s, Paul continued his solo journey. He released McCartney the Spun 1980 featuring pioneering synth-pop tracks that showed his experimental mindset never ceased. Although criticized, the album became an inspiration for a new generation of musicians in the UK and the US throughout the 1980s and beyond. Paul collaborated with major artists such as Stevie Wonder, Ebony and Ivory, and Michael Jackson. Collaborations that became icons of the global music market. Not only active as an artist, Paul McCartney has played an important role in charity and social events, inspiring others through messages of peace, animal protection, and community art programs. Every decade, Paul has left a creative mark. The album Flaming Pie, 1997, reaffirmed his independent status, Chaos and Creation in the Backyard, 2005, received a Grammy nomination. Egypt Station, 2018, reached number 1 on the Billboard 200, demonstrating enduring vitality through 6 decades of his career. Alongside his career, Paul's personal life has also faced many losses. In 1998, Linda passed away after a long battle with cancer, leaving a significant void in Paul's heart. He continued his artistic work, later marrying Heather Mills 2002 to 2008, and then Nancy Shev 1 present. Paul has 5 children, many of whom pursue art and design, becoming a vibrant part of his legacy amid pressures of comparison with the past. Paul has never stopped innovating. His humility blended with pride is the driving force that has helped Paul McCartney maintain an irreplaceable position, while always ready to push his own creative boundaries. The journey of standing up after the legend has paved the way for Paul McCartney to move toward defining moments where he actively faces every rumor, every pressure, and is ready to speak out and clarify everything. The truth revealed. The truth revealed. In recent years, Paul McCartney has continuously appeared in major magazines, exclusive interviews, international events, and on social media, always ready to answer directly every question tied to his name regarding the breakup of the Beatles. Paul has repeatedly denied the idea that he was the cause of the group's end. In an interview with Rolling Stone in 2018, Paul emphasized, "It wasn't just one thing. We were all growing apart." He explained that the breakup was the result of a long process of change, including differences in personality, creative direction, and increasing external pressures. Paul also shared in The Guardian in 2016 that he had tried to keep the band together. "I was just trying to keep the band together." This view has gradually gained acceptance among music scholars and the international media. The relationship between Paul and John Lennon is a topic often revisited when discussing the Beatles' legacy. In an interview with David Frost in 2012, Paul confirmed, "John and I were very close, but we had our differences. We were like brothers, and sometimes brothers fight." It was this collaboration, conflict, and quiet rivalry that fueled their explosive creativity, helping elevate the band to a level no one could replicate. After many years, Paul still expresses deep respect and affection for Lennon. A handwritten letter to Lennon, recently auctioned, shows that Paul has never forgotten his greatest collaborator. Impossible to sum up. I love him because 2024. Regarding the Paul is dead rumor that once caused a global sensation at the end of the 1960s, Paul has directly refuted it on multiple occasions in the media. In an interview with Barbara Walters in 2000, he stated, "It's flattering in a way that people think I'm that important, but it's just a rumor, and it's not true." These statements have been widely quoted by international media as official confirmation and have become examples of how Paul faces every rumor with characteristic calmness, composure, and humor. His relationship with Yoko Ono, once blamed by the public as an indirect reason for the group's breakup, has also been addressed by Paul with frankness and respect. "Yoko was part of Jay's life, and I respect that. She's a talented artist in her own right." This perspective has helped dispel decades-long misunderstandings among fans and music lovers. When talking about his life's journey, Paul often expresses gratitude for his achievements, but does not shy away from mentioning regrets. In a December 2024 interview with People, Paul affirmed, "I have big plans for 2025. He revealed that age has not diminished his creative passion, but has made him cherish every moment spent with music even more. On Beatles Bible 2023, Paul once confided, "There was one guy who wrote yesterday, and I was him. That's enough for anyone's life." On social media, every post about Paul's photo exhibitions, new products, or artistic activities attracts hundreds of thousands of views, creating strong resonance with generations of global audiences. Paul often shares positive messages, encouraging young people and young artists to maintain their creative spirit. At the age of 82, Paul McCartney is not only speaking out to clarify the truth about the past, but also actively building a new image, reflecting the spirit of an artist ready to face and overcome any pressure. These direct statements, interviews, and official pronouncements in recent times have created a new milestone for Paul's image in the public eye, preparing for the next journey as he continues to spread an unlimited legacy around the world, the flame of a legend. Since 2022, Paul's Got Back tour has sold millions of tickets worldwide, with shows in Australia, the UK, and the US continuously sold out, demonstrating an appeal that has never diminished. The surprise performance at Bowery Ballroom in New York in early 2025 generated a major buzz, with a set list featuring Beatles hits, Wings classics, and solo works, taking the audience through 6 decades of music history in just a few hours. Beyond live performances, Paul remains a major source of inspiration for the global music industry by boldly embracing new technology in his creations. The single Now and Then, released in 2023, is a clear example, applying artificial intelligence for the first time to separate John Lennon's vocals from an old demo, creating a unique reunion of the 4 Beatles on the charts. The song quickly reached number 1 in the UK and earned Paul the 2025 Grammy Award for Best Rock Performance. Both the public and the media consider this move as both a tribute to the past and a declaration of Paul's modern artistic vision in an era dominated by digital music. Paul's impact goes far beyond music. He also leaves a mark in photography, publishing, and visual arts. The Eyes of the Storm exhibition, held in London and Virginia from 2023 to 2024, attracted hundreds of thousands of viewers and received a warm welcome from the international art community and audiences. The photo collections capturing the Beatles' journey from 1963 to 1964 helped revive one of the most vibrant periods of 20th century pop culture. All seen through the lens of an insider. At the same time, Paul is preparing to publish a new book in 2025, offering deeper connections with fans through stories, memories, and never-before-seen materials. Paul McCartney's legacy is recognized around the world through impressive numbers: 18 Grammy Awards, induction into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame twice with both the Beatles and as a solo artist, hundreds of millions of records sold, and thousands of concerts across 5 continents. The Guinness World Records names Paul as the artist with the most chart-topping songs and the composer of the most covered song of all time, Yesterday. Billboard ranks him as the most successful songwriter of the 20th century. And Rolling Stone lists Paul among the top 100 greatest songwriters in history. But Paul's greatest value does not lie in awards or records, but in his influence on generations of artists and audiences to come. He has actively collaborated with younger stars such as Beyoncé and Billie Eilish, showing a constant willingness to learn and reinvent himself. Paul's involvement in music, fashion, and contemporary art projects keeps his image close to all age groups. Many international researchers and music scholars also acknowledge that Paul's bass technique has completely changed the role of the instrument in pop music, laying the foundation for many new trends and styles. Entering 2025, Paul McCartney continues to demonstrate the limitless vitality of an artist who refuses to grow old. He is planning to release a new album produced by Andy Watt, reissue Denny Lane's Holidays album, expand his photography exhibitions, launch a new book, and prepare special events celebrating over 60 years of creativity. Every new step receives strong support from the fan community and international critics, reaffirming Paul's irreplaceable status on the modern music map. With a spirit always moving forward, Paul McCartney inspires millions from young artists to the general public. For me, music is the answer, and I still want to be the one asking the questions. Paul Tom Doyle 2024. At 82, Paul not only preserves the legacy of a legend, but also keeps expanding his boundaries, continuing to conquer the stage and the hearts of audiences worldwide. If you want to follow Paul McCartney's next journeys, don't forget to subscribe to our channel, share this video, and leave your thoughts in the comments below.